Vinyl community, I'm back to do a recent vinyl finds video, and I'm gonna start with books. I've been buying a lot of records recently, and I have more coming in the mail. It's been that sort of period now during the holidays. But I also bought a lot of books and I'm reading a lot again, which I'm super happy that I'm back at doing. So I read this now, Times and Sounds by Jan Retze. It's German's journey from jazz and pop to krautrock and beyond. And it's just that. It's a book about krautrock, but it always with that sort of one foot in the history of Germany with the wars and the generation that came after that. Great read. Now, if you're into the real obscure sort of krautrock and German space rock and electronic music, this is not the book for you. They only scratch the surface, really. You get the stories about Can, Kraftwerk, and Amundul, a little bit Ashra Temple, but that's it. Like that, no obscure bands than that. But great, easy to read. Great read. Another great read, and this is only for Swedish viewers, I guess, because it's a Swedish book. It's a book about Börje Fredriksson, the saxophonist who did Intervall. Very short lifespan, he committed suicide pretty early on, unfortunately. There's a handful of recordings by the guy, but he was brilliant. And the record Intervall is maybe one of the most important records in Swedish history. Not the most, but one of the most. So this little book that you read in one sitting is perfect for the jazz fans here in Sweden. Another jazz book that I read, and I finished it today, and I have to say that I'm super disappointed, because every time I ask or read about top like 5 or 10 or 3 jazz books ever put out, Beneath the Underdog is always the book that everyone is pointing to, and by Charles Mingus. And in my opinion, this is crap. Not crap, because it would be an insult to feces to say crap. 1971, he died 1977. This has nothing to do with his music, almost at least. It's just him bragging about how to make love to women, pimp, earn money, hustle. I mean, and it's written in third person. Obviously, because everyone's loving this book. Obviously, I'm wrong. I've read it wrong. I don't know. So please let me know what I'm missing, because I read it, don't like it. Like, really don't like it. And I guess that I'd rather be reading a book about Charles Mingus than by Charles Mingus. So I'm gonna buy a book about Charles Mingus instead. That's the books. I have a bunch up there that I haven't read yet, and I'm reading one now. But I'm gonna talk about them as I move along with these recent finds videos. So, records. I'm gonna start with this. I'm late to the game with Thundercats Drunk from 2017. 4 discs on 10-inch records. It's a blend between jazz, hip-hop, and soul. And when I first heard this, back when I got the Epic box set with Massey, Washington, I didn't like it at all. But I've sampled it now with the new speakers and stuff like that, and especially the bass, and it was sort of like an eye-opener to the music. Now I love it. It's a great add to the jazz collection. Check it out if you haven't, but I think the entire world already has this. So I'm moving on with new releases, reissues, and I'm gonna top it off with like original pressings or early pressings at least. So maybe one of the most important records here in Sweden, released last year during the pandemic, is Jazz on New Swedish. So this is Peter Brynjolfsson, who's the writer and guitarist for Ragnarök, the Swedish prog band from the 70s. He got a bunch of people involved in recording this. It's folk music with a pinch of rock, but it's not only Jan Johansson tunes. It's also they do a version of Sverige with Kent. It's fantastic, and it's all about after he interviewed a guy in a political party that is against immigration. They said that the most Swedish thing we have here is Jan Johanssons Jazz på svenska, and Peter Brynilsson said to him that I mean, jazz is not a Swedish thing, and Georg Rill, who plays bass on it, is a Polish immigrant, I think, and I don't know if he and his parents fled from Nazi Germany. But the folk music that they play is not only Swedish folk music. They take bits and pieces from all over, especially Europe. So, I mean, saying that record is typical Swedish for one of the political parties is just bullcrap. So maybe the most important record released in a decade or two. Late to the game with this also, this Ghost Team with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, 2019. He just, I think if I read the story correctly, he just lost his son. So he was depressed as shit. Guess we all would. And he recorded this. Now, in my opinion, you can really hear it in the songs. I think that he said that the songs was already written when he went into the studio after his son had died. But I think that I mean, you can't be uncolored by that sort of experience, and it comes out in music. Fantastic, one of the best Nick Cave's records in a while. Gordon Jackson, Thinking Back, sort of a whimsical folk psych record with a lot of who's who back in the day. Recorded 1971 or 2, and this is a Sunbeam reissue mastered on Abbey Road Studios. Sounds great. Not a perfect 10, but it's a good, solid sort of, if you get it for a decent price sort of record, you should try it out. Same goes with this. Bought it at the same place, got it for a great price. Light Shine with Feeling, Private Press, sort of heavy psych, thick on bass and vocals is, in my opinion, it reminds me of Arthur Brown. Heavy prog, heavy psych. I also actually bought this. This is an original press of Fuzzy Duck. Is way up, maybe number 1 on my want list. Like maybe number 1. But I read when they released this reissue from 2000 and 2020 that it would sound fantastic, be with records. So I got one of those reissues and it sounds great. I mean, I have nothing to compare it to, but I have nothing to complain at. Really thick, like bass, great, funky, good detail, average soundstage, I don't know. But if you're getting a reissue, I guess that this is the one to pick up. I'll let you know when I get the original press which one sounds the best. Let's just put it at that. Another reissue, 2010 reissue of a 1971 album is Idris Muhammad's Black Rhythm Revolution. And sure, a drum sort of percussion based record, but this is a soul jazz record in my opinion, and it's good. It's so good, and it actually sounds it's on BGP, but it sounds really well done. Great production, great mastering, everything's done right in my opinion. Get it. It's cheap too, so get it. Yeah, and the last one of the reissues is I got it for a steal, so I had to grab this in Fantastico by Goblin. Not the best Goblin record, but it's still very entertaining. 1978, and yes, you get that sort of late 70s production on it. And this is actually the most happy Goblin album I have All the others are like really splashed with this sort of horror soundtrack-esque sort of melancholy production, which I love. That's the great part with Goblin. This is more like an average Italian sort of prog record from the time. It's good, but it's not great. Now moving on to the more early pressings and or original pressings. This is the first US press of Status Quo's message from Status Quo, which I think was called Pictures of Matchstick Men in the UK with a different cover. Don't take my words for it. I hate Status Quo. The later Status Quo with Rockin' All Over the World and stuff like that. I can't listen to it. It's not my bag. But I love this. This is the sort of typical 60s UK pop record that we are used to hearing by, I guess, early Bee Gees comes to mind. I don't know why, but early Bee Gees. Yeah, it's not great, but it's an okay record, and it's kind of cool to add to the collection. It's not super expensive. So, talking about great records is ID. It took me a while to hunt this down, I have to be honest, and I was super happy when it came in the mail. Where Are We Going by ID? This is private pressed, 1977, sort of space, proggy space rock, very bombastic sort of, and great production for being a private pressed also. I don't know how many copies they did, but I'm so stoked to have one of them. 1977. The first time I really got hooked on this, because I've read about it and stuff like that, but Diana had, she bought this many moons ago, and that's when I really added it to the want list and started to listen to it online, hoping for a copy of my own one day. This is not a record that pops up in a store here in Sweden. I bought it on Discogs for a great price. I mean, you can haggle on Discogs too without being a dick, because a lot of the sellers on Discogs are pricing the records as dicks. So you can always say that you are willing to pay this amount or this amount and stuff like that. They don't have to sell it if they don't want to. So yeah, buying records 101 with Jonas. Next one is for Mrs. Beasley, Dr. Aftershave and the Mixed Pickles. This is a German jazz rock record. I think that it's labeled as a krautrock record, but I have no idea what they were thinking. If they want to, maybe there were jazz rock records that were kraut records also. I don't know. Fuck it. This is the original press, 1970. Good, yeah. 76. 76. Great jazz rock. It really reminds me of this kind of Swedish jazz rock or fusion records in the mid 70s, like Ablution, Häxmjölk. You have Svenska Löd, but that was a little bit earlier. Janne Schaffer's solo record. You know those kind of records if you're a Swedish jazz rock fan. It reminds me a lot of that. Great. And I also was able to score it with the original like mint poster. So the collector in me went, yay. Miss Beasley, great add to the old collection. Sandy Bull, yeah, fairly new find for me. Pluribus Unum. Two songs one song on each side. He's playing all the instruments. I think this is without drums. I may be mistaken, but I think it's without drums. He plays all the instruments himself, and it's very influenced by sort of Indian raga, droney as hell, just pumping along the entire side. It's fantastic. This is the sort of thing that I love. Reminds me a little bit of Peter Green's should know the name. Fuck it, he did a very like jammy record without Panther or Jeopard or something. I don't know what it's called in English. Okay, moving on. Making an ass of myself. I keep on buying Brian Auger records when I see them, and this was no exception. Brian Auger's Oblivion Express, so a fairly early one, 1971, on RCA Victor. Brian Auger, Berdine, Jim Mullen, and Robbie McIntosh. Produced by Brian Auger, recorded in 1970, and without Judy Driscoll, obviously, because I didn't mention her name. Yeah, RCA Victor, everyone knows about that. And you have a pretty cool gatefold. Fantastic. It starts with John McLaughlin cover, Dragon Song, which is mind-blowing. Not as good as the original, but it's a great rendition of it, or interpretation of it, or cover of it, and it just moves on from there. Fantastic, highly recommended. But everything by Brian Auger is recommended, and I'm going to buy everything when I stumble upon it. This was it's not a perfect cover, but the record is in great condition. This is Juicy Lucy, with that fantastic cover inside of the gatefold, original Vertigo insert, and you have the original UK first press of this. As you can see with the glare there, maybe it's pretty beat down here, the record cover, so that's why it was so cheap. Got it for like, almost felt ashamed buying it in a store in Gothenburg, but you know, the record sounds great, and it's an okay record. Juicy Lucy, in my opinion, is just okay, but it's cool to add to the collection and to the Vertigo collection. Not the best Vertigo record. Okay, 3 more to go. This is a fantastic record. Everyone should own this. It costs next to nothing, and you can get it really easy. You should get it in like near mint quality. This is Shadow of Love by Hanne Boel, Jörgen Emborg, Mads Winding, and Alex Riel. A sort of vocal-based jazz record, but it's recorded fantastic. So it sounds so good. It's a live recording. You can hear the audience. Perfect detail on both voice and instruments. Huge sound stage. It's just the perfect sort of live recording. Get it. Highly recommended. Highly recommended. And the last two, and I'm ashamed to say that I didn't own this before, but now I do. So everything's back to how it should be. This is Jazz at Massey Hall / Quintet. So this is an original Danish press from 1959, I think, or 7. No, 9. 59. Yeah, and what this is it's probably the most famous lineup that will ever record anything in jazz. You have Dizzy Gillespie on trumpet, Charlie Parker on alt sax, Bud Powell on piano, Charles Mingus on bass, and Max Roach on drums. I mean, just let that sink in for just a second. All of you know about this. It was recorded in Toronto in May 1953. May the 15th, 1953. And I think, if I did my research correctly when I read about it, when I listened to it, it's all because of Charles Mingus putting a tape recorder or something like that near the stage. I may be wrong, but the sound quality is not that good, to be honest. I don't think that there's any pressing out there that sounds good. Please let me know if there's anyone that sounds like a Mo-Fi press, you know, mastered by Kevin Gray, but I couldn't find any. And my theory is that the tapes are so bad that you can't really do anything about it. But as a historical sort of piece, I'm so glad that if it's Mingus who recorded it, that he did, because that lineup, I mean, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Bud Powell, Max Roach, and Charles Mingus. I mean, come on. And this is the overdubbed bass, because Charles Mingus couldn't hear his bass, so he went into the studio and played over the tapes and re-recorded his bass lines. They corrected that, I think, later on. And the last one, Money Jungle. Finally have this. There's been so many times where I almost bought an ugly press of this because it was cheap, but I didn't. And now I have an original, big German press. If not first, then really, really early. Of this fantastic record. I mean, you can really feel the energy. And what I read is that Charles Mingus and Duke Ellington were really unfriendly terms. On unfriendly terms, is that correct? And it starts off with the song Money Jungle, and it's just fire from the start. Recorded 1962. Yeah, just a fantastic piece of history also. Duke Ellington, Charles Mingus, Max Roach. I mean, come on. Insane. So I'm glad I didn't buy the Tone Poet. I don't need it now because I have a early first press or early press of it. But the sound quality is not bad, but it's not super good either. I mean, the Tone Poet of this would sound 100 times better, but I don't think that I'm that sort of collector. I like this, even if the sound quality isn't top notch. Like, it's not a 10 sound quality wise. Maybe it's a 5. Yeah, maybe it's a 5. But that's okay for me, because what I bought when I got this is, in my opinion, a little bit of music history. I come as close as I can to this session by putting my needle on this one. And for me, that's worth more than the fidelity or the sound quality of the recording and stuff like that. Now, I love that too, but yeah. So maybe I'll buy the Tone Poet, or maybe I just, if I want to really hear it with fantastic sound, I'll play it Untitled. But the collector in me likes this. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Please leave me comments if you have any questions and stuff like that. And I'll definitely talk to you soon.